Assalamualaikum everyone, welcome back to this channel. This is me Ania Wahid and you are on the channel of Medicare. So welcome back to this channel. So in this lecture we are going to start about the classification of antigens. Through we have a study about what is antigen, what are the types of it. We have discussed it the whole lecture on previous. We have discussed what should be the characteristic of any antigen, and now we are going to study the biological classification of antigen. So in the previous lecture we have discussed the classification of antigen on the base of their mechanism of action, on the base of their presence of their location. So we have studied it. We have divided the antigen into the two major classes, the self antigen and the non self antigen. Then we have divided them again. Okay, so we have made a broad classification, but now this classification is separate. This is the biological classification. Actually it based upon the mechanism of action of that antigen. So the biological classification of antigen, it has divided the antigen into two types. The first type is called as T cell dependent antigen, and the second type is T cell independent antigens. So ये दो types हैं. First we will discuss T cell dependent antigens. What are them? So these are the antigens which depend upon the T cell. डिपेंडेंट मीन डिपेंड कर रहे हैं किस पे, ऑन द टी सेल्स टू इंड्यूस द इम्यून रिस्पॉन्स. So these are the, no doubt that antigen are responsible for inducing the immune system, for inducing your immune response. But if the antigen is dependent on the T cell, then they will be called as T cell dependent antigen. So why it is dependent on antigen? I know a lot of questions are held in your brain that why they are dependent on T cell to induce the immune response, and how they are depending or inducing the immune response. So let's discuss that. We will discuss its mechanism of action, that how it is dependent on T cell. So here the mechanism of action is written. First of all, these antigens will go and bind with the antigen representing cell. So this is called as antigen presentation. So first of all, body आपकी कैसे recognize करेगा एक antigen को? By these cells. Our body has specific cells which are called as antigen representing cells. What are the examples of them? Your dendritic cells, your macrophages, your antigen representing cells, macrophages, they all are acting as antigen representing. So whenever the antigens enter into the body, these cells automatically recognize it and bind with it, and after the binding they will express some part of antigen on them and show the body that any antigen is entered into the body. Now the body will activate itself, so they will phagocytosis will occur. They will engulf the antigen into it and form a major complex which is called as major histocompatibility complex, which is abbreviated as MHC complex. ठीक है. Now what will happen after it? T cell will activate it out. How? Your antigen and MHC complex will cause the activation of T cell receptor. So on the T cell there is a receptor is present, so it will activate it out, and whenever the T cell receptor activated, it release cytokines. What are the function of cytokines? Very simple. The cytokines are responsible for the activation of beta cells. You know, the beta cells are very important for the production of antibodies or the memory cells. So these cytokines send signals to the beta cell. As a result, beta cell will produce plasma cell, and then from the plasma cells a specific antibody will produce against that specific antigen, and then these antibody will go bind with these antigens and agglutination will happen. After that, this antigen is going to be destroyed by your antibodies, and your immune response is done. Your immune system is done. It has killed the foreign particle which is this antigen. Okay, and the memory cells will also be produced against that antigen. Whenever again this antigen enter in your body, your memory cells will activate it out. They will go kill that antigens and it vanish. So memory cells don't need to produce again. They will already stored in your body. Whenever they sense the same antigen is entered, they go at that side, kill them and vanish it. Okay, so this was the mechanism of it. These are the T cell dependent antigen. Okay, how they work we have explained it in detail. Now let's discuss what are the types of what is the example of these antigens. Which type of antigen act as T cell dependent antigen, and what are the examples of it? Let's discuss that. So here I have given the example of antigen T cell dependent antigens. So some protein antigens are the examples of it. What are the protein antigens? So these are some protein natured antigen who has the nature of protein, and they are from the bacteria, from the virus, or from any pathogen which is present in our environment. So it is consist of protein nature. Then it will enter out and repeats the whole process as we have discussed in the mechanism of action. Now we have came over the second type of antigen on the base of biological classification, and this is the T cell independent antigens. So they are not depending on your T cell for activating, for inducing your immune response. So they are independent. How and why, how they are causing and inducing your immune response? Because they have to induce the immune response, but with the another mechanism of action. And what is its mechanism, we will discuss it. So these antigens can activate the beta cells, not the T cell. It activate the beta cells, which are the other cell, without activating the T cells. So they directly are activating the beta cell. They are not binding to your antigen representing cells. They are not making the MHC complex. They are not binding, they are directly binding to T cell receptors, sorry, beta cells receptors. So what is happening, the antigen will bind to the beta cell receptor and causing the activation of it. After the activation, the beta cells will go and produce some antibodies, and it has the function to produce a memory cell, but in that case no memory cell will produce and a weak immune response is occur. Why, I explain to you. Because now in the antigen presenting cells, which I have explained earlier, antigen representing cell has the ability to detect what type of antigen it is, and what type of antibody should be made against it. ठीक है, अगर for example मैं आपको shape से बता देती हूँ. So in the T cell dependent, we have said this particularly circle antigen is entered. So antigen representing cell, I have representing it as the rectangular. So this rectangular show antigen presenting cells. So they detect the shape of it, and after that they will send signals to T cells, to beta cells, and they call the beta cells to produce the antibody to destroy that shape. Then the antibodies which produce against that antigen is like this shape. So this antibody is specific for this antigen. Only this antigen can bind with it, and then it will kill out. No other type of antigen antibody will kill it. Okay, but now we have say in the T cell independent antigen, we have no APC, we have no antigen representing cell. Now your antigen is directly binding to your beta cells to produce your antibodies. So your beta cells, I am representing it with that square. This is your word, this is your beta cells. Now beta cells has no ability to detect that antigen. Beta cell not detect that what kind of antibody is specific for it. Beta cells directly going to produce different kind of antibodies, like it not only produce this shape, but also produce this shape, also produce this shape of antibody, so it is producing different shapes. Okay, so it is not detecting the shape of that antigen, so it's mean it is producing non-specific antibody. It is not only this is our specific antibody, and it is producing non-specific antibody and producing no memory cells, because here we don't know what is the shape of antigen, so it is producing no memory for it. Again that antigen will come, and again the antibody will produce, we have no memory for it, and it is a weak immune response. It is quite weak because a lot of antibodies are produced, only one antibody will go and bind with that antigen, so therefore it is weak, it is not strong type. Examples of antigens which are acting as T cell independent antibody, like bacteria capsule. It just let's consider this antigen as a bacterial capsule. It will do the same thing. Bacteria flagella. Okay, so now I am drawing the bacteria flagella. Let's consider this is the flagella of any bacteria. It will bind and repeat the same process. And lipopolysaccharide of anyone, ठीक है, not fixed that it is of bacteria, it is belong to any other animal or human being, it could be from anything. When it's bind with the beta cells, it will produce a lot of antibody or non-specific antibodies, and having no memory cells production. So this was the concept of T cells dependent and independent antigens. Now we will see the difference between both of these. So let's discuss the difference between them. So here I have written the difference between the T cell independent or T cell dependent antigen. So first difference is on the base of their structure. So the structure of your independent is simple, which is only attacking to the beta cells, and which is which is dependent on the T cell. Its structure is complex. Okay, so it has very complex structure, 3D structure. Okay, so there is no memory cell formation in case of independent antigen, and in the case of dependent, it produce metabolism inside the body. The metabolism of this antigen is slow, because it has very weak antigen, and only different types of antibodies are produced, and only one antibody can go and kill that antigen, so therefore metabolism is quite slow. But in case of dependent, only the specific antibodies produced, which has the ability to kill that antigen, so therefore rapidly it's going to metabolize and vanish out of our immune system. Secondly, majorly it produces the antibody which is IgM and IgG. These two antibodies are produced by these antigens. But in case of these antigens, all antibodies can produce. Like suppose if I am giving the antigen whose IgE antibody is going to kill that, so and IgE antibody is only produced. If I give the T cell dependent antigen, which is of which only be killed by IgM, so only IgM antibody will produce against it. So all mean doesn't mean that all the antibodies are produced. It only produce the specific antigen, but produce all the types of, can produce all the type. IgA भी produce कर सकता है, IgG भी, IgM भी, IgE भी, ठीक है. So there is no case of antigen representing cell in this, but antigen presenting cells are needed in that process. Activate the beta cell which are mature or immature. Now let's discuss when the beta cell is mature and when the beta cell is immature. So actually, after the production of beta cells, after getting the signals from the cytokines, these beta cells go to your lymph nodes, and here it get mature. So I am writing it down here. So what is happened? Your immature beta cells will go towards your lymph nodes, which is a part of your lymphatic system. After going to lymph node, they will mature here. So after entering into it, your beta cells are mature beta cells. Okay, So this is why the beta cells is going to mature. But in the case of independent antigen, it will activate the beta cells which are whether impure, mature or immature, and then it will cause the production of antibodies. But in case of dependent antigen, only mature beta cells are going to activate. Only these mature beta cells which came out from the lymph node, only they can attack with the antigen, which is the T cell dependent antigen. Okay, so this was the difference between them. We have discussed it. Now we are going to discuss a specific topic which include in the antigen, and this topic is about the super antigen. Actually, super antigen is quite a bit similar to that topic, so therefore I have included it here, so that you can easily understand that concept here easily, because they have some relation between them. So that let's discuss about it, that what is a super antigen, what are the examples of it, and we also explain its mechanism with the help of diagram. So this is the information about the super antigen. So what are the super antigens? They directly activate T cell without activating the APC. APC is what? Antigen presenting cells. So what is the difference? We have seen that in the case of T dependent antigen, the I first the antigen will bind to your antigen representing cell, then it will go produce the MHC, and after the MHC T cell activate, then B cell activate, and then the antibodies is produced. But in the case of independent antigens, directly antigens will bind to beta cells. But in case of super antigen, directly it binds to T cells, not APC, directly bind T cell and form the bridge between the MSH of APC and T cells. So this point will clear out when you explain when you see the diagram, and cause the high increase of cytokines, and which cause the increase in the release of non-specific antibodies. And this case and this disease is called as hypergammaglobulinemia. So, what are the examples of these super antigens? These are some from the bacteria. So, they are called as bacterial super antigen. Like examples, staphylococcal toxin, streptococcal toxin, and strains of E. coli. Some are viral super antigens like HIV coded super antigen and rabies nucleocapsid. And they cause the disease in your body, like they can cause toxic shock syndrome. It is caused by these two toxins. Okay, it can cause food poisoning, atopic dermatitis, and cause autoimmune diseases in your body. How they are causing it, let's discuss their mechanism. So here I have explained the mechanism here, and now you can easily see that how it is going to work here. So we have said that the super antigen is going to activate the T cells. How? So this is your antigen representing cells. On the antigen representing cells, we have said there is what? There is M मेजर histocompatibility complex, ये present है इस shape में. And now with the antigen representing cell, there is a T cell here. On the T cell, this receptor is present, which is of T cell. Okay, so it is present on the T cell. So now they will make a bridge between cells. How? When the super antigen came. So this super antigens came and it formed the bridge between both of these cells. Like I am making the bridge between them. So it is connecting both of them. Okay. After this connection, the T cells will activate it out and they will start to release cytokines. But now the amount of cytokines is very large, कि नॉर्मल अमाउंट में अब साइटोकाइंस रिलीज नहीं हुआ, बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सेसिव अमाउंट में साइटोकाइंस रिलीज हो रहे हैं. एंड ड्यू टू इट्स एक्सेसिव अमाउंट, अ लॉट ऑफ एंटीबॉडीज आर प्रोड्यूस. Okay, a lot of excessive amount of antibodies are produced, and due to a lot of antibodies, these antibodies will go and destroy your own organs. So therefore they will cause the autoimmune disease, like we have said in the case of thyroid gland disease, which is called as Hashimoto's thyroidist. In that disease, your own body antibodies will destroy the thyroid gland. So this is an autoimmune disease. So it happens due to this reason. Any super antigen came out, it will cause the super activation of T cell, which result in super release of cytokines, which will cause super release of antibodies, and it will cause you autoimmune disease. ठीक है, and it will destroy your own organs, and therefore it will cause the death of that patient. So that's why they can cause you food poisoning. You heard about a lot of people died due to food poisoning, because this mechanism occur in that patient. Due to this mechanism, their own antibody destroy their own organs and the patient will die. So therefore the toxic shock syndrome, okay, and food poisoning, atopic dermatitis, and a lot of autoimmune diseases, they are occurring due to this super antigen. So therefore this concept were very important to tell you about it, and you should know about it. If anyone could question you in the viva, so you should know that why the autoimmune disease is occurring to you due to super antigen. So super antigen is causing the super activation of T cells, super activation of cytokines, super activation or super production of antibodies that harmful for our own body. So this was all about the today's lecture. I hope that you will understand it. We have discussed a lot of things here. We have discussed the biological classification of antigen, that is very, very important. We have discussed the difference between them. We have studied the examples of them, and also discussed the whole mechanism, that how they are working, which is the most important thing. And then we have also discussed the whole concept of super antigen. I hope that you will understand it. And if you have still some confusion left, then you definitely can leave a comment for me. Then you will definitely question me, I will give answer to you. So thank you so much for watching this video till the last end, and please subscribe to that channel for getting more videos on these topics. So take care of yourself. Meet you soon in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.